Comparing airplanes is a subjective thing to do. My choices and opinions are sure to be different than yours. In this video, I'm going to compare the Cessna 152 and the RV-12 based on my own experiences. Now, I've owned a 152 in the past, and I currently own an RV-12. That's the basis for my opinions. I'm not biased one way or the other. I want to rate each airplane on its own merits. I'm not going to talk about wingspan, horsepower, takeoff distance, or specs like that. Instead, I'm going to compare using real-world utility of each airplane, either as a personal aircraft, but then again as a trainer. The Cessna 152 was last produced in 1985, so I'll use data from the Pilot Operating Handbook published around that time. The RV is in current production, and I'll use Van's material for that. Now, the RV-12 has two models. The model that I own is the RV-12 IS, so that's the one I'm going to use to compare. Now, here is the score sheet. The categories that I chose might surprise you, but hear me out to the end. Maybe you'll agree with me. So, let's dig in. Rating airplanes based on comfort might seem like an unusual place to start. I figure if you're going to be sitting inside a machine for 1 or 2 or possibly 4 hours at a stretch, it matters. The Cessna 152 cabin width is 40 inches. The RV-12 is wider at 43 inches. As for headroom, in the Cessna, I never felt like headroom was an issue, but in the RV, it feels like I just have an inch or two. Now, as for entry and exit, in the Cessna, you get in like you get into a car. You duck under the wing, you open the door, and you get in. I've never had to explain to anybody how to get into a 152. The RV is different. You approach from the front. From there, it's like doing the hokey pokey. You put your left foot here, you put your right foot there, then you turn yourself around, you step inside the cockpit, don't step upon the seat, and you sit yourself right down. Phew! Getting out is a bit the reverse. I will not let a passenger deplane without me being outside on the ground to guide them. The Cessna seats, they work like the ones in your car. To adjust, they slide forward and back on rails. The RV seats are adjustable too. Here's how. You remove the bottom cushion, pull the seat back forward. There's a spring-loaded rod that fits into one of 3 holes to move the seat fore and aft. Now, if you're the only pilot, you can set it and forget it. But you might have to change this on the passenger side depending on your passenger. I think the RV wins big time on the visibility score. The Cessna has good downward visibility, but that wing and doorpost can obstruct the view. As a former CFI, I remember telling my students they have to raise the left wing first to clear the area before making a left turn. Same going right. With the RV, you sit in a bubble canopy and you can see it all, including good downward visibility. Need gas? In the Cessna 152, you need to climb a ladder to fill up the right tank. Move the ladder to fill up the left tank. To pre-flight, you stand on the strut and put a stick in the tank to check the fuel level. In the RV, you just pull up to the pump like you're in your Ford F-150 pickup and put the nozzle in the hole. You can see a float gauge through the rear window. So, which plane wins? Well, neither one in my opinion. They both have advantages in one area and challenges in another. So I'm going to call it even. Useful load is defined as max takeoff weight minus basic empty weight. Knowing that, you add oil, fuel, pilot, passenger, and baggage to calculate the actual takeoff weight. So let's do a simple flight plan. In our case, we're going to ignore the weight of the oil. Because the RV is a light sport aircraft, the max takeoff weight is limited to 1,320 pounds. Our RV is a lightweight 792 pounds empty, while the 152 weighs in at 1,081 pounds. The useful load for the Cessna is greater. But let's continue to plan our flight and see if the planes are equivalent. The RV holds 20 gallons of fuel, while the 152 holds 26. The weights are getting closer together. I weigh 166, my wife is 116, and we want to carry 75 pounds of baggage. Both planes can do the flight, but the 152 has a higher margin below max weight and can carry more. So while we're on the topic of baggage, not only can the 152 carry 120 pounds of baggage compared to the RV's max of 75, but access to the baggage area is easier. My wife and I use only soft cloth bags because hard shell luggage may not fit through the opening into the baggage area on the RV. So here, the 152 is going to win in this category. Both the Cessna 152 and the RV-12 are lightweight two-place airplanes with engines of similar horsepower. Any difference in cruise speeds likely comes down to aerodynamic efficiency. Cross-country cruising usually is done between 5,000 and 10,000 feet in this class of airplane, so let's focus there. The Cessna 152 cruises at 108 knots at 8,000 feet. Those crafty people at Vans, they market the RV-12 as 135 miles per hour because it sounds better than the lower number in knots. Nevertheless, 135 miles per hour is 117 knots, which is faster than the Cessna. To me, another performance indicator is rate of climb. I personally want to get up to or above 5,000 feet quickly because that's where the cooler air is in the summertime. That's where the smooth air starts, and that's where the better true airspeed lives. Looking at the Cessna specs, rate of climb is in the range of 400 to 700 feet per minute. The RV claims 1,000 feet per minute climb, but I routinely see 1,200 feet per minute when I fly. From my airport field elevation of 1,500 feet, I get above 5,000 feet in under 4 minutes. So when assigning a rating in this category, I omitted the training role for both airplanes. I think primary training should be done low and slow. Who's going to do ground reference maneuvers from 8,000 feet? For personal use aircraft, the RV beats out the Cessna in both speed and climbing ability. Range is a factor of speed times endurance. Endurance is determined by fuel on board and rate of consumption. The 152 carries 24.5 usable gallons, while the RV carries 20. At the lowest power setting, the Cessna quotes a range of 370 nautical miles with a 45-minute reserve. The RV quotes 660 statute miles, which is 573 nautical, but without a reserve. So let's add a reserve to that, and then we'll back the number down to 468 nautical miles for the RV. I don't think range matters much in a trainer mode. Except for the long three-legged cross-country trip, most flights are relatively local. So evaluating just based on personal use alone, the RV takes the win for range. Odds are, if you're flying a Cessna 152, it's equipped with the old 3.5-inch gauges, while the RV is delivered with a glass cockpit. It's no surprise that I have an opinion about that. I think student pilots training for the private pilot license should learn the old school way. Not all planes have glass panels, so if they train in one that does, then how will they handle transitioning to the dials if they encounter that? I enjoy the advantages of our advanced panel while flying for personal trips, but I'm not in training. I love the stick in our plane, but I prefer the yoke for training. If a student needs to have a sectional in his lap, a yoke doesn't interfere like a stick would. Do you like a kneeboard? I can't wear one on my leg with the stick in place, but I could with a yoke. Autopilots are great on long trips, but I think a student in training should hand fly the whole time. So it's no surprise that I think the 152 wins the trophy in this category as a trainer, but the RV wins the prize for personal use. These two planes have radically different engines. I'm not going to compare the engines though. I'm going to compare the controls. The Rotax engine in the RV-12 is so advanced that the only control is the throttle. Everything else is computer controlled. This is good for a personal plane, but not good for training. Students should learn how to deal with priming an engine, handling a flooded engine. They need to understand and practice applying carb heat and knowing when to do it. They should have to get proficient leaning the engine at altitude. Once again, the 152 wins the category as a trainer, and the RV wins as a personal craft. So here's the biggie, handling and flight characteristics. I took my initial training in the Cessna 172. Then the flight school acquired a Cessna 150, which I started flying because it was cheaper. After some time later, I flew the 172 again, and I thought, this thing flies like a truck. The 150 was so light and responsive, like a sports car. Still is. And so is the RV-12. Both are reasonably stable and easy to fly. The RV is particularly forgiving. I think the 152 is more stable in rough air because of the added weight. If you watch my landing videos in the RV, there's always some rocking and rolling when I get down low on a windy day. The castering nose wheel requires some getting used to at first, but just like all the Grumman series of planes, it works well enough. As a personal airplane, the RV-12 is a joy to fly. It is so responsive to even the smallest of inputs, and the weight-to-power ratio is perfect. In fact, I think I might do a video about the flight characteristics of the RV-12 later on. So here's my rating. There's one glaring omission that I will explain later. This will be an unrated category. The RV-12 meets the requirements to be a light sport aircraft. So if you only intend to fly an LSA, the RV is the plane for you. However, the FAA, under the Mosaic rule, as of April 2023, is still considering expanding the sport pilot regulations. It appears that the Cessna 152 will not become an LSA since it's already certificated under standard airworthiness. But the rule may be amended to allow a sport pilot to fly a 152. Stay tuned. Here is how I score the final results. From left to right, it's no surprise that the Cessna 152, which was designed from the outset to be a trainer, scores high as a trainer. The RV-12 scores low as a trainer in my book, but just if you're going after the private pilot license, which is what I'm assuming. If you just want the sport pilot license and never anything more, then the RV should work okay in the trainer role. Just like learning to drive in a stick shift and then upgrade to an automatic, I think you should train in a basic airplane before advancing to something more modern. The RV-12 got no marks for handling in the trainer role because I believe its lightweight makes the airplane too squirrely down low for a novice trainee. In the personal role, the 152 can work well enough for travel. In fact, I had one for years and enjoyed it immensely. It only falls short in a direct comparison to the newer RV-12, which has more capability. In this role, I didn't discuss price. That could be a big factor for you when acquiring a plane for personal use. If price is your number one concern, then go get a 152. Now, not everybody's going to agree with my assessment. In fact, I'll be disappointed if I don't hear some conflicting opinions. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Until the next episode, be safe out there.